whoever.
It's scary too. There's a lot of talk. There's a lot of talk that we're going to see sort of a Patriot Act 2.0 in response to the insurrection at the Capitol, the attempted coup at the Capitol. Um, and I don't think that those rumors are paranoid or unfounded, because Biden literally wrote the Patriot Act, which I was previously unaware of. And it's funny because one of the things that I've been seeing people say by mistake is they say that Biden, I forget what it was. It was like the omnibus counterterrorism bill originally, before it was rebranded as the Patriot Act. I've been seeing people say mistakenly that he wrote it in response to the Oklahoma City bombing. The Oklahoma City bombing happened in April of 1995. He introduced this bill into Congress in February of 1995, 2 months before the Oklahoma City bombing. So before we even had one of those huge events that, in some people's minds, justified the erosion of our civil liberties, Biden was already like, we got to get on this. So given that history, and also, Kamala is his vice president, I don't think it's unfounded to suspect that some new form of tyranny is going to be rolled out. And it's freaky. Hang on. I found something that I thought was so fucking... Yeah, okay. Yeah, this is turning into a longer episode than we intended, but we're okay. So, and they've been talking about this since like months ago. This article, Biden administration urged to take fresh look at domestic terrorism. This is from November 13th. So they've been fear-mongering about domestic terrorism for months now. And what's the fuzzy logic of this shit, Mary McCord, a former federal prosecutor who now works at Georgetown University Law Center, said there are currently no federal terrorism laws that apply to the most common method of committing a terrorist act, a mass shooting, where there is no tie to a foreign terrorist organization. And it's interesting to me looking at that and thinking, somebody who's more like centrist, like a liberal or a standard conservative, might read that and be like, wow, I can't believe we don't have any federal laws prohibiting mass shootings. I'm like, shooting somebody is illegal. Mass shootings are illegal. Like if you commit a mass shooting, you're going to be in prison for the rest of your fucking life. But they use this to fearmonger, and they try to distort your perception of reality so that it makes you think, wow, we really need to do something. We need more laws. And this is the Wall Street fucking Journal.
Who's Mary McCord?
This is how news works. This is how manufacturing consent works. Like they find these people with prestigious sounding credentials, and then they just randomly quote them in articles. And then dumb fucks like us who don't know any better are like, oh, well, this former federal prosecutor who now works at Georgetown University Law Center, which I've never fucking heard of, but sounds very impressive. She obviously knows what the fuck she's talking about. And she's saying, wow, we don't have any federal terrorism laws that...
I'm going to stop you there.
Yeah.
We would actually need to see her full quote to know that if she actually said that, because her quote can be taken very much out of context, as almost all journalism is nowadays, right? So you can see that the whole half the quote, the entirety of the quote that is incorrect is not in quotation. So she said that there are currently no federal terrorism laws, which is not part of her quote, and then start quote, that apply to the most common method of committing a terror. You know what I mean? You see
totally.
where that...
Yeah, and I don't mean to hate on her, because you're right, we don't know what she actually said, but that is what this paragraph is supposed to tell you, is that we need to do something. There's no anti-terrorism laws about mass shootings, and it's like, a mass shooting is illegal. Like, you're going to get the books thrown at you if you do that.
Yeah, terrorism is like. So what this sounds like is what they're trying to transform. They're trying to do a definition switch. Definition expansion, I guess, would be the better term. In that they're trying to take terrorism, say that there are currently no laws against it, and she's using the example of mass shootings, which there obviously is because shooting and killing people is illegal. But what they'll do is they'll create a law against terrorism, and then that will be expanded to be any words that I say to you could be incited as verbal terrorism. And
sorry, I read this before we like an hour ago, and I forgot there's the paragraph before that. It actually says federal law defines domestic terrorism as dangerous and illegal acts intended to coerce a population or influence the government.
So sorry, I'm kind of interrupting you.
No,
I really want to get this point across is that this is exactly what I just said without reading the article. So yay, Zach. But is that they're going to just keep expanding and expanding and expanding that definition until anything that can possibly be construed as a dissent against the government or the system, if you might call it that, will be considered terrorism and will get you thrown in prison. That's where it's going. I mean,
I think you see an analog to that already where an organization like the Gray Zone, which does stellar reporting about U.S. imperialism, they're considered conspiracy theorists because they don't adhere to the mainstream narrative. That's not as bad as being legally branded as like a domestic terrorist for potentially fomenting discontent, which may potentially lead to a riot. But I think it's the beginnings of that. It's the first. It's earlier up the slippery slope that we're rapidly sliding down.
Yeah, and this plays along with that funky feeling I was telling you about. I mean, it just some stuff just seems off at this current time, right? And it all seems to be sort of just one big tidal wave of stuff, like in that article that you just showed me, goes very much hand in hand with the stuff that Twitter and Facebook are doing, right? And in banning certain types of speech that they have construed as inciting violence. There's no proof that was the cause of the violence or of the what happened. Clearly he said, hey, we're meeting at the Capitol at this time. Or you know what I mean? Like he did say, hey, we're doing this, but he didn't say, hey, everyone storm the Capitol. So, it was their interpretation of it that they used. And that's what that terrorism definition is going to do. It's going to just the interpretation of it's just going to keep expanding and expanding until it covers anything that they can find that might be dissent against them. I don't think I'm saying anything wrong here. I think I'm trying to choose my words carefully, but
I think that is the direction it's going to go, especially I think ultimately you'll probably be able to dissent, but it'll be within the constrained Overton window of allowable opinion. And it could, and perhaps likely will, get to a point where expressing an opinion outside of the Overton window no longer gets you branded as a conspiracy theorist and instead gets you branded as a domestic terrorist or a domestic terrorist sympathizer or something like that.